respects voters. And we have enough
HeartCity
voting power here to change anything that needs to be changed.
Politics, progress, game boards, objects viewed like pawns till we change up our mindset. Value of the dollars at the center of this conflict, where lives only matter if they serve to make a profit. But if a midget sees further on the shoulders of the giant, then we should see further than the tyrant and build a future within alliance where success is our science in the quest to go higher to the heart of the city.
Wake up, world. You're watching HeartCity TV. Welcome to another episode. I'm your host, Malik Boyd. I hope that wherever you are, you're in good spirits and all is truly well. The show topic today, you are not alone. How do we navigate health, life, and love in today's climate? There is so much to contend with, no matter what city you are in. And so our hearts go out to all of you who are dealing with issues of COVID, challenges around employment, taking care of your families in the midst of this current environment. Know that a change is coming, resource is coming, and more importantly, as we stick together, we can do wonders and survive this moment in time. I am always excited to have those who understand their role in kingdom and in community. One such individual is none other than the senior pastor of Camphor Memorial United Methodist Church, none other than Pastor Frank Moore. It is obviously a beautiful time for the kingdom. It is a beautiful time for those who understand the power of prayer, the power of togetherness, and they know not only who they are, but whose they are. You lead such a reminder in the footprint of ministry, Pastor Moore. It is an absolute pleasure having you on HeartCity. Welcome home.
Thank you.
So, Pastor, let's go into the issues. You deal with these issues on a daily basis, not just the ones that hit mainstream media. Obviously, the media outlets will talk about some of the high profile issues, but those who are charged to lead often go into homes that the news cameras drive by, that the news reporters do not see. You deal with issues, some of the most challenging for individuals to ever face. And so with all that you know, with all that you've experienced, I'm going to ask you to lead us into our 2-minute prayer for the city.
Certainly, we will do that. Let's all bow now together at this particular time and moment. Gracious God, our Heavenly Father, we bow before you and give you thanks for all of your rich blessings. We give you thanks, O God, for life, health, and for strength. We thank you for giving us the ability to pray. In these times of chaos, life-threatening virus, sporadic violence, emotional disturbances, mental depression, mental stress, times of loss of job, shutting down of business, and just the plain misery of everyday life. We bring all of this before you, and we ask your gracious spirit to be with us. We pray, Almighty God, for every city in this land, and the struggles that each city is enduring. We pray, Almighty God, for the leadership of all of our cities, and indeed for all of our leadership in every capacity of life, that you will bless them with wisdom and with grace and with mercy, that they may be able to lead us in better ways. And then, oh God, we lift up unto you those who are really sick in the misery of this virus in times. And we pray, Almighty God, that you will strengthen the strength that you have already given them. Strengthen them at every level. And we pray that you will comfort the bereaved and heal the brokenhearted. And then those, oh Almighty God, who are caretakers and taking care of others, we pray that you will bless them with more strength and more ability to do so. We bring all of this to you and to your amazing grace. And we ask that your spirit will be poured out on all flesh, everywhere, and that it will transform us into being better people. We submit this prayer now and these petitions to you. In the name of your Son, Jesus the Christ, we pray. Let the church say, Amen.
Amen. Indeed, Reverend Moore. Thank you for covering the broadcast audience in prayer. Tell the broadcast audience what's happening on your side of the kingdom.
Well, on our side of the kingdom, due to this particular coronavirus, we're not doing everything like we used to do, as you very well know. Everything now is basically on Zoom. All of
Okay.
my Bible studies twice a week, they're on Zoom. All of the counseling I'm doing now is on Zoom. As a matter of fact, Malik, I will tell you, and we are preaching, every Sunday on Zoom for those of us who have not gone back to our churches. But I'll tell you this, man, we are noticing something. I think because we have been doing the Zoom so long, ever since the virus was here, I think
Right.
some of our people are getting used to that and kind of want to sit at home now.
Yes, sir.
Rush
Yeah.
back to church, brother. So you see, we're struggling here in that particular level. But surely we all are still, we're engaged at Camphor. We're engaged in feeding the poor, feeding the hungry. We're engaged in a book club and carrying books to the library for young folk to read, to develop and to grow. And then we are also very much so politically and socially conscious. We did like other churches, we had a voter driver registration. Our church was also a polling station, for voting, etc. And
Right.
we find ourselves trying to be involved at every level in everything that is going on for the most part.
Beautiful.
But then on the other hand, one of the big things about our ministry above all is the ministry of teaching and preaching, which is the Bible. See, my big concern is with people, particularly church people, and the illiteracy they have on the Bible.
Yeah.
And so my concern is to try to heighten their literacy on the Bible and teach them more about the Bible. So I have these 2 Bible studies every week on Tuesdays and Thursdays so that most people in our congregation can get involved. That is one of my main concerns, the biblical illiteracy. And I know that, the Bible is the #1 book in the world, but it's
Right.
the most misunderstood book
Yeah.
and
Indeed.
misused book and abused book. From all of
Yeah.
these various things that people want to do, they throw it on the Bible. And so we
True.
got a great task trying to free the Bible from all of the abuse that has been placed upon it. So that's our major focus right there. And in doing that, we try to heal people's lives through the word.
It's so amazing just listening to you and hearing you talk about the Bible, and you use the phrase freeing the Bible. It's amazing that a book that speaks of so much freedom, physically, economically, spiritually, is actually locked up in other people's stuff.
You got it. You got it. You got it. Exactly. That's really how my heart is.
I get it, and it's much needed. And so let's talk about your dissertation. So you have a doctorate of ministry from United Theological Seminary in Dayton, Ohio, but your dissertation was health and wellness in the African American churches in the 20th century, an ongoing program. Clearly, it is still ongoing. And so talk about the health and wellness of the church. Where do we need to be in this moment?
Well, there's a passage in one of John's letters, and he prays that the people be in good health and prosper as their souls prosper. So my point is, if you don't deal with the health of people, you cannot really deal with the souls. See, so the health of the people as well as their souls go hand in hand. So my contention is every church should focus on the health and the wellness of every individual as well as their soul. So the reason why I got into this, because I was concerned about Black people, in particular, like my dad, who died when I was 12 years old. He died of a hemorrhage of the brain, an aneurysm, and it was because of his diet, the pork, the salt and all that kind of carrying on. So that ushered me into it. And as I was visiting people in hospitals so often, going around all the time, I found out that more people were in the hospital, not because of real sicknesses, but because of how they abuse their own health. particularly in the area of eating,
Wow.
fasting,
Yeah.
exercise. You see, and my point was, if we can do all of these things, we can cut down on a whole lot of our unnecessary ill health. And that's what pushed me into that. And so my concern is always for people to eat right, eat proper, do the things that make for health so that you don't have, well, really, you can't even afford to go to the doctors nowadays. So
That's true.
the whole point is prevention is still the key to overall health. And so I encourage people when I was in Indiana and Ohio that they would indeed start developing these concerns in their congregations about
Yeah.
the health and wellness, because that was the big issue why Black folk, African American folk,
Mm.
died from diabetes, heart attacks, strokes, man,
Yeah.
high blood pressure, and the like. So that's why I got into it.
I'm glad that you touch on that, because so many of us talk about faith and
Yeah.
having faith, and we clearly lay things at the feet of our Lord and Savior. But he also talks about wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get
Yes.
wisdom with all
Yes.
thy getting. Get some understanding.
Yes.
Understand how to move in this space and
Yes.
time. And health and wellness in many cases for us, especially, even with me growing up in a very traditional church,
Mhm.
the church punch, you look forward to that. You
Yeah.
look forward to some fried fish. You look forward to
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
greens with some meat in it.
Yeah.
You knew you were going to get a good meal at church with the church mothers in the kitchen. And now we have to have another conversation about taking care of the temple.
Yes. Yes. And that's my whole issue. That body, taking care of that. And you're right that once I started this doctoral program years ago, I ran into a lot of church folk that said to me, "Oh, no, 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 the pig done brought me this far, and I'm gonna let it carry me home in." So you're
Yeah.
right, man. I had to face all those kind of challenges, but I do thank God that there were some who did hear. And what's so amazing now is that many people still call me and ask me, "Dr. Moore, what should I do about this? What should I do about that?" In
Right.
terms of just everyday life and the basic things to eat.
Yeah.
Plato and all of the other great philosophers were concerned also about health. So their
Hmm.
thing was a healthy mind and a healthy body, and of course to go to the gym, because at
Mm.
that day and time, a gymnasium was not necessarily the place that we go to play basketball. That was
Right.
a place where folk went and they talked about these great issues, but they were also kind of naked when they were talking, you see. But their
Absolutely.
concern was, man, good health, mental health, good health body, and exercises. And if you do those, you'll be in a better shape to live a better life and to be a better servant for the Lord. So you're
Now,
right. Stop talking to Jesus, asking Jesus to do it all. Jesus has given you wisdom to do it.
right.
So yeah,
Do it for yourself.
you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talked about something in the green room that I wanted to bring up. You mentioned Plato and some of the conversation that he had during his time, but they were very linguistical in nature, avid studiers of the language.
Sure.
You had a conversation with me about language, and I want to make sure that the broadcast audience understands and gets that gem that you left with us. Talk about this concept of the city and the root words that you expressed to me.
Okay, so in the Greek we had this word polis. Some
Hmm.
pronounce it polis, others polis. But anyway, it is the root. It is the word for city. Now, in any language like Greek, Hebrew, or any other language, the first three letters are the root words of of any particular word. That's the etymology. It's the first
Right.
three letters. So if you got pol and then you add is to it, you got this polis, which is city.
Okay.
Now here becomes the key. And this is something that I was doing on my own, just running through words and checking things out. And so here is the point. Keeping POL, as the root word,
Hmm.
well, here's the point. In order to run a city, you need some POLITICIANS, politicians. See,
Yeah.
so therefore the politicians are designed for the police. The other
Yeah.
thing is that then as politicians, you need to make some POLICY, some policies, to run the particular police. Now,
Yeah.
once you make these policies, Then you need somebody to come along and to protect the policies. That's where you get the POLITICIN, but who's going to protect it is the POLICE, the police. So it's still POL. Now here's the other thing. What's so interesting in the POL is that there's a kind of behavior that the city ought to have, and that's POLITE, being polite. So polite is behavior.
Indeed.
But notice this, Malik. Everything is designed for the city. Everything is designed for the city. That's where we get this, metropolitan, metro all around the whole city and the area around the city, you see. So if you really look at it, the main focus is the city. And the danger of that, as far as I'm concerned, the danger of that is that it becomes the city and all of the city's institutions, the city buildings, etc., but not so much the people. But we still live that way. So we are protecting the city, the politicians, the policies, and then when we vote, we got to go to the POLL, which is the poll.
Right.
So you see, all of them got the POL in the very beginning, which tells us all of it is related to the city. Now, I don't have a problem with that, on the other hand, because Jeremiah said that make sure that you pray for the city, because in the city's welfare is our welfare. So when I pray, I often pray and ask God to bless the police, that they get a good meal before they leave home. Right. And I pray to God that they don't be on a high of sugar and anything else and doing things they don't need to do. So I pray that God grant them good health so that they can make the right health choices. Because I'm convinced that judges, police, and others, they get up, they eat the wrong thing, they have a sugar rush, et cetera, et cetera. All of that stuff, man, plays into their behavior. So that's why I'm talking about this thing, POLIS, this kind of thing, the police, which is indeed what we're about. But the danger is we make the building and the parking lots more important than the people in the city.
Yes, Doc, you just did a whole sermon series and a Bible study right there, man. That's some gems, brother. And it's something that I think we need to focus on. Loving the people. It's so amazing that you look at companies like Chick-fil-A. They talk about customer service and how well their customer service is, when really that should be the standard, not the exception.
Correct.
And not just in food service, but in how we treat each other, how we love on each other and take care of each other.
Oh my goodness, yes, man. Yes. And if we can turn our attention to that more than these kind of selfish things that we do, we would be better off. There's no doubt about it.
Doc, pass the plate, brother. The sermon has been rendered. I honor you. I appreciate you and the great work that you're doing. Tell the broadcast audience how they can worship and fellowship with you in Camphor.
Okay, how they can worship with us and fellowship with us in Camphor, they can go on our website, Camphor Memorial United Methodist Church, Philadelphia, because there are other Camphor churches in some other areas. So you want to put Camphor Memorial Church in Philadelphia. And then what you want to do is to go into our website and everything there that you can see about us, you can get in touch with us right there.
Perfect. Doc, I appreciate you. Thank you for covering us in prayer. We pray God's continued increase on your life and the life of the ministry.
And thank you, my brother, for having me.
Yes, sir. So, listening audience, you have heard from an amazing pastor, Dr. Frank Moore, and the great work that he's doing in the space. Please, by all means, make sure you check out the family at Camphor. We will post their information on our social media pages. I'm going to a break. On the other side, Lynette Trawick and Jeff Hood. We're going to hear about the great work that both of them are doing in the space of community service, wellness, fitness, health, education, and more. It's about how we stick together, grow together, learn together, and prosper together. The show topic: you are not alone. And indeed, you are not. And so take out your stethoscope, place it on the broadcast dial. You are watching HeartCity TV. We'll be right back.
You ready to see what $2.5 trillion in spending power can really do? You ready to pool these resources and rebuild our infrastructure?
You ready to support your sisters and brothers that are building businesses at record rates?
This what trust looks like, what love looks like, what us looks like, yeah.
You ready to give back to the culture that's given you so much? You ready to continue the legacy of Black economic excellence? You ready to work hard and play harder? You ready to let the black dollar circulate?
This what trust looks like, what love looks like, what us looks like, yeah. New type of leveling, new type of excellence.
You ready for a banking platform designed for us to win?
¿Estás listo para unirte en nuestra colección de soñadores?
You ready for this marathon to continue? You ready to bet on black for real? Then get ready for Greenwood.
New type of leveling, new type of excellence.
This is our time.
We're back. You're watching Heart City TV. I'm excited about this next brother. He's doing amazing work in the space. He is one of the leaders in the Police Athletic League. He covers the country doing development work for the Police Athletic League, ensuring that its mission, its objective is covered and provides impact not just for selective communities, but for all communities. He's also doing work in the international space as well. And so I'm excited to have him to talk about the projects that he's working on, the impact that PAL is having in the community, even despite all of the issues of COVID. Jeff Hood, the CEO of PAL, it is an honor, my brother, to have you with us on Heart City. Welcome home.
Welcome, man. Good to see you, man. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Hey, listen, we appreciate you, my brother. And so you have this amazing event coming up. And I think it's really important that we pay attention to it. I want to make sure that it gets on the screen for those who are checking it out. It's From the Voices of Youth, Community Town Hall Series. It's presented by Microsoft and Extended Stay America. You have great folk like Rep. Lamont Robinson, Vivica A. Fox, the Chicago Superintendent, David Brown. Obviously, you are in it as well. Hollis Williams and Chief Kenton, it looks like Rainey.
Kenton Rainey, correct.
And I believe he's doing work in, where's his leadership?
His jurisdiction is basically, he's the University of Chicago police chief. So there's this whole area within Chicago, in and around the area of the University of Chicago. So he is the chief of police of that whole community. And he and I started a PAL program actually on the campus of University of Chicago. So it's real cool. It's just one of those new kind of innovative, dynamic types of things because, especially in a number of colleges that are in inner city, they're surrounded by the nuances that's going on within the inner city, right? So what better way to be able to have these students to be able to give back to their surrounding community than by embracing them, by starting PAL programs. And then also through that process, with all what that's going on in our times now with the George Floyd situation and all of that, there's no better time, man, to be able to continue establishing better rapport and relations between our kids, cops, and communities. So that's what that's about as well.
You do amazing work in bridging that gap, and it's a tough bridge to navigate indeed with all that is going on. Obviously, you know, there are two sides to the story, very clearly. And there are men and women who wear the badge who serve our cities well. And I need to be very clear on that.
Yes, yes.
They sacrifice their lives. And let's be honest, folk, there's not enough money that you can be paid to put your life on the line on a daily basis.
That's right.
And particularly for individuals that you may not even know. And so to those who are doing that level of service, we honor you and appreciate you. And then on the city side, for those who are impacted by, you know, sometimes the stops that can look predatory and the activity that they receive from the bad apples of the bunch, there's work to be done. And I think people miss the fact that PAL could play a very crucial role in bridging that gap and providing programming that impacts the community as a whole.
Yeah, no question, Malik. And that's and let me say first and foremost, I'm a product of that environment, right? I'm originally from the inner city, New York, so I grew up in the urban community, and you know, been through all of that welfare thing and all of that, and I was in PAL. As a young kid. So I know what can come from that experience firsthand. No one has to tell me about it. Nobody has to, you know, open that door for me. I've been through that door. I know what happens with that. And I know the positive relationships that can come from that. You know, but Malik, you touched on it very early on, are there some bad cops and law enforcement officers across this country? Without question. Without question, there are, you know, but in that same token, and I hope your listeners hear this in the true light of which I'm going to be putting this, right? Are there some bad kids in this community, in communities across the country? There most certainly are.
Right.
You know, and so where we have to do, and where our, you know, space is that we are about bringing people to the table to have conversation, to have dialogue, so that we can hear, okay, you know, from a young person, well, you know, the reason why we act like this is because you talk to us this way, or you talk down to us this way, or you did it. But then we can also have it from the standpoint from the law enforcement side. It's like, well, we do these things because you act like this, and you act, you know, you do these things that ignite certain things. So through that conversation, there becomes an understanding of both sides, right? You know, the thing that I always tell people is, look, at the end of the day, this is the thing that needs to be in the forefront. The role is for everybody to go home at night.
True.
That's the thing. The police officer wants to go home at night to his and her family, and the young person or community person, they want to go home to their family as well. So if we can always keep that in the forefront of that, look, no matter what's happening right here, at the end of the day, we all trying to go home, right? You know, and then we deal with some of these issues, and you're so right, man. I mean, my phone has been humming for the last number of months, and you know, because PAL's not a new thing. It's not a new fad. PAL has been around for over 100 years, and our thing is that we have always been labeled as the best kept secret, right? And right now is not a time to be secretive, you know, or to be unheard of. So that's why we're doing these types of things, like the National PAL host from the Voices of Youth. It's an 18-city series, town hall series that we're doing. And this one that you picked up on that we're doing tomorrow, live from Chicago with, you know, State Representative Lamont Robinson, and Chicago Superintendent David Brown, and Chief Rainey, and Hollis Williams from Microsoft. So we're even going to have representation from the corporate sector as well. Right. And then, you know, have my good buddy Vivica Fox on there as well, and myself. And we actually are going to be on the panel fielding questions and having conversation and discussion with young people in Chicago, you know, and that's what it is. It's none of us are running for any offices. We're not trying to, it's not about us. Right. It's about hearing from them And I think we as persons within the communities, we don't always do a good job at listening, right? We always think that we have the latest and the greatest. We know what's going to work for the young people. We know, by God, you need to listen to this. Do as I say, not as I do. Right?
Not as I do. Yeah.
Right. We have to listen intently and intentionally to our young people, you know, and it's like we had a session in East Cleveland about 3 weeks ago. And one of the questions that we put to the young people was this: what is it within your community that you have a problem with, that concerns you, that you would like to correct? Two of the four youth panelists, and the other two agreed after these two said it, was, I'm tired of going to bed at night having to listen to gunshots.
Wow.
In the community of East Cleveland, right? So trust me, Malik, and you know me a little bit.
Yeah.
If there's a bad cop out there, we need to get him or her and get him off the street. So I'm 100% on that. But I'm also 100% on those people that are shooting these bullets all in East Cleveland and across this country in these communities, and that are killing, you know, our young people as well. I'm 100% on trying to get them out of the community too.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, absolutely. So we have to make sure that we are not just so caught up on the law enforcement side. Trust me. And again, please hear me, your listeners. I'm all about dealing with them too. Non-negotiable. I'm about getting them too, right? But statistically, we kill each other at a much higher rate than a law enforcement officer does.
Oh,
and
no,
we have to address that.
We have to have a conversation in our own backyard.
Yeah,
that is absolute. And the level of love that we need to have for each other needs to increase.
No question.
And it's amazing because Pastor Dr. Frank Moore, who was on earlier, we talked about this, the city and how the city treats itself versus how we treat people in the city. We're taking care of all the things within the city except for the people.
Right.
We can't challenge our young people and say, you guys aren't taking care of each other and loving on each other, but then we sit in the church pew and not speak to each other.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of backwards and running the definition, I believe, of insanity at a whole different level. And so, Jeff, I got to go, but I need you to know this. I honor you, brother. You know,
I appreciate you, man.
You're doing. A lot of folk don't know it because you're doing it without the cameras. You're going in some of the places where the cameras won't even come.
You got that right.
You know that our young people do the work, and so we're going to make sure that we post this event because I think everyone needs to be aware of it.
Yeah. Hey, Malik, and real quick, I'll send you the one as well next week, next Thursday. Okay. We're actually having another town hall in Atlanta with Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms.
Okay. Yeah,
and Chief Bryant from the Atlanta PD, and so we're doing it next week in Atlanta, Chicago tomorrow, Atlanta the following week, and then we have several more to do, LA, New York, and all that as well. So I'll definitely keep you abreast, man. And anytime you have me, man, I'm just a phone call or text away.
Hey, listen, this is home for you, brother. And so we'll make sure as we get that information, we'll get it out to the masses. But I need you to know, my brother, from my heart to yours, we love you. We honor you. And you're doing amazing work. Give our love to the family over at PAL, brother.
No doubt. Definitely will, man. And you be blessed. And I know I talked to you before, but if I don't, have a blessed and safe holiday as well. And make sure you wear that mask, man.
Yes, sir. Mask up. Indeed.
That's it.
So you have heard from a good brother. I mean that in every sense of the word. Jeff Hood is an amazing advocate for our people, for our community, and he's doing tremendous work to ensure that the community has everything that they need as it relates to PAL and its mission. Please, by all means, support PAL, the great work that they're doing. We'll promote it on our social media pages, but get your young people involved. This next young lady, Lynette Trawick, she is amazing. I love, her bio starts off when she talks about her title. The first thing she says is, "I'm a child of God. I'm a wife, a mother, HIV/AIDS advocate." She's a speaker, natural hair stylist, and aspiring author. More importantly, she gives back as a philanthropist to the community and to the country at large. It is an amazing honor to have Lynette Trawick on Heart City. Welcome home, Lynette. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you for having me.
No, we appreciate you for this amazing work that you're doing. And so there's so much going on. I think we can probably start from various angles. I mean, even in the pandemic, you're doing work with the IMU Inc. And so let's start there. Let's talk about IMU, its mission, and the impact that you've been able to make through the organization.
Yes, of course. So IMU is my baby. That is my nonprofit organization. Kind of started organically back in 2008, I'll say. I'll say for starters. Officially, it started in 2012. We became a nonprofit. And it's been some great work. We've had a lot of ups and downs. It's been a learning experience, but our mission is to serve women who are living with HIV, specifically between the ages of 25 and 45 years old. We decided to target that age group because we realized that age group are the women who are in childbearing years, where we're dating, we're looking to be married and things like that. And we have all of this stuff going on. And then once you throw HIV into the mix, it kind of complicates it all. So we want to help to sort out at least the HIV portion by serving those women, as well as helping them to build up their support system. So teaching their loved ones, helping to educate the children, helping to educate their partners and different things like that. So,
it's interesting. There's a fact, 2019, estimated 19.2 million women were living with HIV, which basically constitute more than half of the adults age 15 and over in the country that are living with HIV. And so this is a very real issue. And I think a lot of people, we kind of, and I'll be honest, for many of us, unless you're impacted by it directly, either yourself or family or a loved one that you know and care for, you think about it on the high profile space. What happened with, luminaries like Magic Johnson and others. But because it's not in the mainstream media, we tend to put it aside and file it away. But this is a very, very real issue for African Americans. What's happening in the space for us around HIV? What are some of the things that we need to know, how to deal with coping with the condition, and then education as a whole?
I think one of the big things that you said was the fact that, it's not even a topic anymore, especially in our community. And I can attest for that personally. I was diagnosed with HIV actually November 18th, 2008. So it's been 12 years for me that I was diagnosed with this virus. And prior to my diagnosis, I had no knowledge of HIV. It was just one of the tests, one of the many STI tests that they offered. And I just used to get it annually just because it was offered to me. So once I was diagnosed, it was like, wait a minute, that was something I was never expecting because it was not, talked about in our community. So I wanted to make it a point to actually start talking about it. And not just giving the textbook knowledge that a lot of us got and kind of brushed off to the side, because I'm sure all of us heard HIV sometime in high school, but you just didn't really pay attention to it because it wasn't relatable, because it was just a bunch of words in a textbook or a bunch of pictures on a slideshow that you just brushed off to the side. So I like to give the real side of HIV, and I think that is the most important part of it, talking about family and talking about community and talking about the things that I currently do, with the youth and being 100% real about it, so not only talking from the side of how it is living with HIV, but those things that could have been done in order to prevent me from contracting HIV, didn't, and not just, yes, abstinence is a great topic to talk about. Yes, we're going to talk about why we should wait for marriage. Yes, we're going to talk about if you don't wait for marriage, using condoms. However, it's way deeper than that. We're talking about why it is that, as young women or young men, we feel like it's okay to just give our bodies to someone. We talk about those deeper self-esteem and self-confidence issues. So yeah, when it comes to HIV, it's so much deeper than just the medical side of it.
It clearly is, and I'm glad that we have an advocate, one who is leading the fight, to really make sure that we have the proper education. I mean, you are doing the work. It's not the sexy thing when we talk about the media, but nonetheless, it is absolutely essential for our community and for the world as a whole. IMU is doing some pretty amazing work during the pandemic, dealing with those who are challenged in coping with isolation.
Yes, isolation that's always an issue, with people living with HIV, but it's definitely an issue right now during the pandemic because we don't have a lot of the resources, and outlets that we generally have access to. Isolation is one of the reasons why people who are diagnosed with HIV tend to not that they're diagnosed with HIV to other people, because of the stigma. You kind of don't want to be pushed away, from your peers and different people like that. You don't want to be single, like, oh goodness, what if I say something to this guy, or what if I say something to this woman and they decide to just leave me alone? So isolation is a huge issue. So again, right now, it's really deep. So IMU is trying to focus on just creating those safe spaces to communicate. We're, even during the pandemic, we're doing a lot of the peer support. We have a lot of people who reach out to us, and we do different connections, trying to make sure that people have the support that they need in order to cope with their isolation. We're dealing with virtual stuff right now, but you just got to kind of get creative with it. We have to focus on things like one of the things that I always try to do is try to pair somebody up with someone who they can relate to. So when someone reaches out to me telling me that my mom was diagnosed with HIV and I have no idea what to do, I'll try to connect them with someone whose mother, it has been diagnosed. Yes, I can speak, but however, I think you can just kind of relate more when it's someone who's been through it, just as yourself. I've had a child since being diagnosed with HIV. I'm married. My husband is HIV negative. So those are the people who I like to speak to, because again, I remember what that was like, being diagnosed and not having anyone to talk to who looked like me.
You bring up this really, I think it's a challenging point, because in one instance, yes, we need to talk about making sure that we have resources to help individuals cope with issues of isolation and balance between work and family, and how, what their new normal will be. But there's another educational opportunity on those who are part of the village. The village needs to understand and get beyond the stereotypes and some of these hangups that we have around the condition itself. How is that landscape? Has that been a tough case for you in terms of educating the village?
Yes and no. I think getting in the spaces that I need to be in can sometimes be challenging. However, from the perspective that I come from, it makes it a lot easier. I'm very comfortable in my diagnosis. My family's very comfortable with it. So I don't have I don't have to be restricted about what I say in certain places, because some people have the issue with, okay, I can't even speak freely because what about how my children feel, or what about how my husband feels? HIV is a normal conversation in our house, and I made it a point to make it a normal topic of conversation so that they won't feel those negative effects of somebody saying something in the wrong way and them being completely offended. I take on an approach where I can freely say that I am living with HIV. I can confidently say that I'm living with HIV, and I'm fully prepared for the questions that are going to come. I'm fully prepared for people who really may not know how to ask certain questions. And sometimes it may come off as offensive, but knowing that everybody isn't as knowledgeable as I am about HIV, I understand how to now help them figure out how to ask the question properly, without getting offended, like, oh my goodness, don't say that to
Right.
me. And,
Right.
don't say that like that. So,
No, and that's the good thing. I appreciate your heart and your willingness to go beyond the visceral reaction, the knee-jerk reaction, to ensure that we have best practices. We learn how to love on the members of our community who are in this space and dealing with the virus itself. And so how does one get in touch with you and connect with IMU and this great work? Because I'm sure for those who are watching the broadcast, they're hearing this information, recognizing that the community that they live in may need this information, or one who is a thought leader who also has a heart to embrace, the interesting questions that come and translate them into meaningful answers.
Yeah. So firstly, I, definitely would want people to understand that there is someone living in your community with HIV. No matter what community you're in, there is someone who is either diagnosed with HIV or someone who is affected by HIV. So meaning there's someone in their circle who is affected, someone in somebody's circle, somebody knows somebody who's living with HIV. So it's in all of our communities. It doesn't matter what color you are, what gender you are, it's in our community. I contracted HIV through a heterosexual relationship. Unfortunately, that relationship was abusive. So, HIV was the last of the STIs that I contracted within that relationship. So it can happen to anyone. So with that being said, anybody, I want any and everyone to reach out to IMU, with any questions that you may have. I'm mostly reached on social media. I'm very active on social media. In addition to HIV and AIDS, I also do, I'm a wellness instructor. I'm a wellness coach. So I do a variety of fitness things as well. So you can reach me on Facebook under my name, Lynette Trawick. I have a public page. And as well as Instagram, it's under my nonprofit's name, IMU Inc.
So broadcast audience, please know we will promote Lynette's connections on our social media pages. It is important to have this conversation, and as Lynette said, to make it a part of our everyday conversation, going beyond the stigma and ensuring that we're having meaningful dialogue around prevention and everyday life with HIV. Lynette, we honor you. We love you and appreciate you for the great work you are doing. Please give our love to your family and the team at IMU.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. So we've heard from Lynette Trawick and the great work that she's doing with IMU. For those who know someone who's dealing with HIV, for those of us that may have questions, may not be as knowledgeable about the virus itself, it is important that we reach out to experts in our community who understand the issues, who know how to not only answer your question, but to guide you to resources and tools to help you deal with the issue at hand, and more importantly, have a beautiful and impactful life if you are contracted or have contracted the HIV virus. I think also it's really important that we get beyond the stereotypes and the stigmas that we place on it and begin to love just a little bit more than what we are doing. And to Lynette's point, we have to make sure that it is a daily conversation or a conversation that we're at least addressing in our community. There is no place for hate in this conversation. And also there's no place that we should not be able to have a conversation around health, especially for our people. And so we'll post all of Lynette's information on social media. Now, I'm getting ready to go to our EKGs. These two individuals are, they're amazing men in the community, brothers, leaders, fathers, there's a pop in there. I'm not going to say which one, but if you follow his social media, you will see beautiful pictures of him and his grandchildren, none other than Bishop Stephen Avinger Sr. and my brother Will Morgan III. It is great to have y'all on Heart City. Welcome home, brothers.
Thank you, man. Good to be here.
Listen, I wanted to do the pomp and circumstance and do the intro and all of that, but we ain't got the time. And yes, I said we ain't got the time. There's so much information that I think is really important that we want to get out. And I really want to get your perspectives as well on the issues. And so if you guys are ready, I just want to jump right into the EKGs. You good with that?
Let's do it. Absolutely.
Here we go. So the first story, entrepreneurs take over the registers in Atlanta and pay for $40,000 worth of groceries.
There you go.
First of all, I'm moving to Atlanta next week. Going right around that grocery store. I think it's amazing to see this level of work, and I want people to understand these were young brothers who did this too. So this is not some company that decided to try and do a tax write-off. These are young brothers who said, I love my community, I love my city, and I want to give back to them. Will, you do a lot of work in the community around children, families. You're doing coaching, and so you're covering that whole aspect of their life, and you're doing a lot of community engagement, doing some of the same similar things that these brothers did in Atlanta. What's your thoughts around this level of impact? I mean, obviously, young entrepreneurs, you expect them to maybe put up $5,000, $2,000. These brothers put up $40,000 to ensure that families in that store had a blessing and were able to enjoy the holiday season. What are your thoughts around that level of impact?
Yeah, so the beautiful thing, man, is a lot of times you see leadership and you see this activism coming from the younger generation out there, and it's great. A lot of times they're the ones that are most connected, right, to the who are struggling, especially in this COVID pandemic situation, man. Kids not being in school, not getting the lunches, not getting the breakfast, not getting the snacks they might normally get. We take it for granted a lot of times, just a simple meal, right? Or a teacher who knows that a kid is struggling or knows that a family is struggling might package something and send it home on the side. But, right now in this current environment we're in, there's not a lot of that going on. So, to see these young brothers, man, step up to the plate, man, and reach into their own pockets and say, you know what? I'm going to take care of my community, right? Because there's a need there, and I'm going to make sure that it gets taken care of, man. It's a beautiful thing to see, man.
It is. It's a beautiful thing to see. It's great to see young Black men doing this level of work. Will, you do that on the norm. Doc, these are one of your founding principles over at the Nation, Greater St. Matthew, ministry beyond the walls. This is a premise that you have made sure that as members and part of the family, we pay attention to and make a part of our daily life, but it is a norm for you and the ministry at Greater St. Matthew. But it's unique to see it happening outside of the church as well. Many rely on the church in a very heavy way around the holiday season. What was the first reaction that you had when you looked and saw it wasn't Jamal Bryant? It wasn't, Pastor Warnock. It was young brothers. And one of them had a T-shirt that said, athlete with a line through it, rapper with a line through it, entrepreneur big and bold at the end.
Yeah, I think that's tremendous for this reason, that they were sensitive enough to understand there really is a need today out there. People are hurting bad. And you never know how many of those folk in that grocery store was buying groceries, making a choice rather than have to pay their water bill or their gas bill or electric bill.
And these brothers came along and made it so that they could buy groceries and pay that bill.
Indeed.
That's sensitive, that's loving, man, and I salute those brothers.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, it's great work. And so to those brothers, we honor you, and as Dr. Avinger said, we appreciate you and salute the great work you're doing. We're going to make sure that we post that on our Facebook page. Please, by all means, share and support young brothers, not just in Atlanta who are doing that work, but wherever you may be. I'm going to our next story. This one is equally as crucial and impactful. When COVID-19 closed schools, we already knew this in our community, but Black, Hispanic, and poor children took the biggest hits in math and reading. Now, I'll be honest, I had issues with math, and my mom was a math teacher. I'm sorry, Mom. I don't know what I was doing in 7th and 8th grade, but you know, I was playing around. I was doing something else with the graphic calculator. You know, back in the day, Will, we used to make words with the calculator, flip it upside down. Now we have
man.
Absolutely. So now we have a situation where children are struggling. They don't have the after-school instruction that they need. And while Zoom may provide some level of technological convenience, it doesn't allow oftentimes for that one-on-one instruction that needs to happen at lunchtime or, you know, directly after school to help our kids move beyond their current environment. Doc, you focus on education as a pursuit, not just yourself individually, but for the ministry and the community by which Greater St. Matthew has a footprint. What are some of the things we need to do to help cover this gap?
Yeah, I mean,
that's a question that I'm wrestling with right now in my mind. Right? We don't know the devastation that is happening as a result of this COVID across the board, particularly in our communities, and where we used to be in a position to open the church up and say, okay, you know, we can take some of that burden, right? We can put some folk in the hall downstairs or across the street in the annex, right? And put some tutors in there to help. You can't even do that today, right?
Right.
So something that we've been accustomed to doing and wanting to do, right? COVID has shut everything down. And quite frankly, Malik, I think we're going to be in a situation where those people can't afford to put their kids in private school right now. They're going to be behind a year, at least a year. And I think after this thing is over, that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to open up our facilities. We're going to have to get those retired teachers and what have you to come into our facilities to try and tutor these folk back up. Because it's going to need a village to address this situation for sure.
You know, it's interesting. Greater St. Matthew, we lovingly refer to the body as the nation. But indeed, what you're talking about is an initiative to simply save the nation and ensure that our intellectual capacity does not wane. Will, on a collegiate level, high school level, elementary level, you know, kids are trying to figure out, hey, this sport I've been trying to play all my life, you know, I'm now back. PIAA is, you know, delaying seasons. Schools are delaying seasons. And now our learning has been delayed as a result of COVID. How do we handle some of these student athletes whose focus, especially these guys that are, you know, juniors, seniors, they were prepping to go to college. They were looking for a scholarship last year. You know, they were hoping to sign with the university and they didn't even get a season, let alone, you know, their last year of calculus or trigonometry or some of these things that are going to be crucial for their collegiate learning. How do we balance this gap?
Right. I mean, so, you know, it's a struggle, man. And I get it from an institutional perspective, you know, to an extent. But, you know, the main focus has got to be the kids, whether it's elementary school, high school, or college, right? You know, at the college level is kind of like, you know, that's the apex of this situation where, you know, you got these kids who, you know, are out there and they're competing, right? They're not only competing at their sport, right? They're competing in their profession in some cases, right? They're future professions, right? And now, you know, COVID has kind of made a situation where, you know, they can't necessarily display all that hard work and effort and time that they put into their craft in order to go to that next level. So, you know, I think these institutions, man, and I think that you know, on a collegiate level, the NCAA needs to step in. You know, I think there needs to be a pandemic, you know, a year essentially, right? Give those the opportunity to come back next year, do some grad program stuff, kick in some dollars so they ain't got to come out their pocket, kick in some dollars so that there's programs set up and established so they can then, you know, have that senior year that they were supposed to have. And I understand from a competitive perspective, it creates situations where these kids are a little bit older, but they're competing for the, again, same job positions professionally in the sporting arenas. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, they didn't ask for this, right? And this is a situation that we're all kind of navigating. And I don't think that their opportunity should get tossed by the wayside. But, you know, I think it's going to be an effort that's going to come from not only, again, the institutions, but, you know, I think we're talking about these stimulus packages for money. There needs to be a stimulus package focused around education. You know, when you talk about elementary schools, you know, I'm fortunate that I'm in a school district and my kids, you know, they're smart, but they're struggling. You know, there are certain distractions that go on. You know, not everyone has a parent that's there that can sit over top of them and teach them like the teacher, right? So, you know, a parent might be on a Zoom here, Zoom there, Zoom, and the kid might be upstairs saying, "Oh yeah, I'm doing my work." Get to the end of the week, you find out they ain't nothing been done. You know, teacher's talking about turn on his video camera for him. You know, I mean, so
you're right.
Again, you know, I know from my situation, which, you know, isn't the worst situation, that it's a struggle. So I can only imagine for others out there, man, it is a complete nightmare in some senses. And again, I hear these stimulus packages going around for the money, which is needed. But I think just as important is the education side of it. And there needs to be some type of stimulus package or programs that are designed and set up for next summer, you know, for these high school and elementary school kids. And there needs to be something that's designed and set up for these collegiate kids. So they have the opportunity that they worked so long and hard for to take advantage of.
Yeah, the intellectual capital must be protected. Go ahead, Doc.
I was going to say, we're going to need some innovation in this country that we haven't had in a long time next year. As not only as we address these vaccines and all this stuff, but so many people have been put behind the 8 ball that there's got to be some innovation, some thinkers running this government in the next few years, because we're in trouble.
Keep in mind, the United States of America was not at the top of the list educationally before this started.
That's right.
Oh, listen,
so
I get it. I get it.
You know, I mean, you know, we weren't necessarily, you know, we as great as the country as we are, man, we weren't necessarily at the top educationally. So, you know, we definitely need to make it a focus, man, in 2021 and 2020 moving forward, to figure out how we're going to overcome this 12 to 18 months that are going to be truly impactful to some people's lives.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's something that we should be paying attention to, especially for those of you who are watching the broadcast at the state level. You want to pay attention to education. For most of us, the state, it plays a major role in your funding for education. Find out where they are around the allocation of stimulus funding for the resources needed for your child. It is not enough just to open up Main Street if we don't have the intellectual capital to learn how to build Main Street up. And so we have to take care of our emerging talent. I'm going to go to our last EKG for the day. This one is this one is heavy. A 5-year-old hit and killed after the mother's boyfriend forced him out of the car as punishment. I really, I'm impacted by this one. You know, when I think about, and thankfully my mother, you know, for my smart behind mouth and it's probably all the days that I stressed every baby hair she had around her edges. I remember the day she took me to the police station and said, all right, look, if you don't get some act right, they're going to put you in a cell over here. And it only took one time for, you know, an officer to come out, and I'm looking at this dude, and, you know, everything in me said, I better act right, at least for this moment right here, because I don't want any problems, and I definitely don't want any bars behind me and my freedom, my ability to make a choice. So I understand the need to kind of shock and awe folk into you know, proper actions and moral structure and context. I think we have to be very careful, Will, you know, about how people handle our children and the places and opportunity and spaces that we put our children in, because some of this tough love can end up being very tragic, like what we saw. And while this may be an isolated incident, something that, you know, maybe few and far between, there are many unreported cases of abuse that happens at the hands of a spouse, or, you know, a loved one, or a boyfriend or girlfriend that you know, went off on the child, ultimately causing the child harm. Well, in sports, you and I know this well, as coaches, athletes, trainers, and officials, taking care of the child and their welfare is the primary goal. And even now, officials are now charged to not just look at the field or the court, but to look at the crowd as well and be able to monitor that. How do we handle, in a very real way, how do we handle dealing with our children who are acting out in this environment without causing them irreparable harm, or even in this case, a tragic end?
Right. So I'm going to say, not to judge the situation. And let me tell you, it hit me. Just the headline alone hit me, and I couldn't get but so deep into it, man, before I started feeling some kind of way. But, you know, I think judgment played a role in this article, and I think judgment plays a role in all those areas and situations that you identify, whether it's official in youth athletics, you know, and making judgments on safety for the kids in the sports, you know, whether it's judgment in a relationship and who you bring into that relationship, and the way that person kind of acts, you know, and whether it's judgment on how you discipline a kid. You know, I'm gonna be honest, man. One time I got broke down on the side of the road on I-95 with my oldest, who was probably 6 at the time, on the side of the road. And I'm watching these cars rip by, and I'm like, man, I do not want to be. You don't know how many prayers I said until that car, you know what I mean, that tow truck came up behind me, man. We were right there, no shoulder. I mean, Mack trucks, and so, you know, to put a child outside of a car on any road, I think it is a lack of judgment. We want to train our kids, and, you know, we want to give them tough love. Get them home, get in the driveway, leave them outside in the rain, watch them through the window, make sure nothing happens. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
leave them outside in the rain, Doc. I don't want to. Hey, look, I'm glad Will ain't my dad, boy. I come in sniffling with the flu.
Exactly. He's gonna catch a cold. You're gonna give him some Vicks,
but he's gonna be all right.
Give him some of that tussin, and he'll be all right. But you know, tough love. I mean, sometimes, man, unfortunately, man, in this day and age, and, you know, trying to show tough love ends tragically. And I think, again, this is just a judgment situation where somebody should have stepped up and said, you know what, this is not the moment nor the time.
This isn't the thing to do, right? Doc, tough love versus responsible love. You know, and tough love can be responsible. In this case, it was really a matter of being irresponsible. Sonia Sessoms posted on the chat how irresponsible this was.
Yeah,
to Will's point, I mean, you put a kid on the side of a road. You know, come on. a 5-year-old?
Well, I've said this often in these days, that there's some parents who should never have been parents. And these days, people don't have the capacity to raise. They don't have the patience. They don't have the I'm trying to watch my words, right? But
no, I got you.
We've got to be careful. And I think more than any time now, we need to have parenting classes. We need to have folk who are going into parenting interact with other parents who've made decisions. I hear people complain about having 1 or 2 children. My mom, not my mom and dad, my mom raised 11 of us by herself, right, with 6 boys, and so. But that was a different breed of person, right?
Yeah.
Today, I'm not sure everybody who's having children ought to be having children because they're not wired that way. And we see it in those type of decisions that are being made where there's not a foundation that they're using to make those decisions on, right? Those seem to be just like arbitrary decisions because I think this might work. And so I think we've got to get back to, there's some things that we've left out of schools today that I think ought to be back. And I think, taking those parenting classes ought to be a priority in schools today. Even, we talk about, how we're training folk, we're trying to get everybody ready for college and half those folk ain't ready, right? But they can cut hair and you can teach them how to do that. They can be entrepreneurs, what have you. I think our system is just so messed up right now. And the priorities that we use to do what we do is just out of sync with what's needed to do.
Changing priorities is absolutely crucial. You brought up some key points, and you and Will both piggybacked on some key principles on this. Knowing that you have the capacity to parent, being around a village that can help you navigate through decision making. There's an aunt or an uncle or a pop somewhere that that's screaming at you. Don't you do that to that boy? There was always something growing up that a kind of barometer that we had in the family. And for, today's time, to your point, Bishop, it is important that we have support around the village, and make sure too that if you are a single parent and engaging a individual, whether you are a mother or a father in that scenario, monitor how that individual you're dating or living with treats your child. That's very crucial as well, because that person doesn't have the same investment or desire sometime or commitment to your child. And to your point, Doc, they'll take some risk that very well may end up with some challenging situations. That story is very tragic. And so for those who are watching the broadcast, please, by all means, share this conversation and share that story. So that we can begin to talk about the conversations to really help our parents deal with the stress too of COVID in this new environment. There's an impact everywhere, and managing it is so crucial. I honor both of you. I appreciate you for doing the EKGs. You always bring some insight. Will, again, I'm thankful that you work my dad in and have me out in the rain running suicides, what I mean? I might have got my time.
I may not have been there. But I survived. I'm here.
Hey, listen, with that kind of training out, you come out like a Navy SEAL. You're ready for anything at that point. Hey, listen, Will, I love you, brother. I love that shirt too.
Thank you.
Is that what shirt? Let me pull that up. Go closer. That's that tribe shirt. Everybody needs to see that. You don't know nothing about it. I love it.
Black Lives Matter. Yep.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Beautiful.
We got the little Colin Kaepernick in there. And then I got a list of all those that have been taken from us way too soon.
My goodness, that concept comes from Tribe Called Quest. For those who may not be of age, a classic hip hop group. But that's a wonderful sweatshirt. To you, Bishop Avinger, man, we honor you, we love you, we appreciate your leadership and the work that you're doing navigating this COVID environment for the children in the kingdom.
Man, that's all I can say about that. Man,
say no more. You said it all. Hey, there's a reason why we use the razor to smooth his head out. You know, we don't want you to see the real impact of the COVID. Listen, both of you have a beautiful week, and thanks again for joining us at HeartCity.
Talk soon, man. Thanks again, man. Great show.
So you've heard from two amazing men in their own right. They do some amazing work in the space. Will over at DASHURI, and you know DASHURI very well, right? If you don't, go to my DASHURI, DASHURI.com, wholly owned minority hemp brand, and Dr. Stephen Avinger, the bishop, as we affectionately call him, leading the charge at Greater St. Matthew Baptist Church right here in Philadelphia. We'll post their contact information so you can stay in touch with them. But more importantly, pay attention to those stories. You know, especially that one with the 5-year-old. It's really important to have that dialogue and make sure that we're talking about parenting in a very real way. This brother, Jonathan Gary, he is phenomenal. I use the word juggernaut, and I was trying not to use the word juggernaut because they get on me because I use it just about every week. But, you know, when Black excellence is in the room, John, I just got to give love and honor on where it's due. And so I'm going to use it in this case. You are a juggernaut.
Thank you, sir.
You're a CEO, 5-time author, motivational speaker, entrepreneur, investor, the founder of I-KARE Treatment Center in West Palm Beach, Florida. It is an absolute pleasure having you on Heart City. Welcome home, brother.
Thank you, man. I'm excited to be here and learn from this community and see how I can get involved and continue the mission.
Listen, first and foremost, you make me feel good, man, because they always pick on me because they said that my bald head glows in the TV lights, right? But I'm looking at you. I'm like, my brother got the same shine. I'm in good company.
Man, you can't go out. You gotta lotion your hands. You gotta lotion your hair.
Yeah, it's that shea butter, man.
That's right. And making sure, you know, if my wife rubbed across it or something, it feel all right. So,
yes, sir.
But yeah, that's
so. So let's talk about your organization. I-KARE is a treatment center in West Palm Beach. You and your lovely wife created a halfway community housing project, I believe in 2014, that kind of paved the way for the I-KARE Treatment Center. So talk about this center, the mission, and the impact that it's had.
Well, we started out in 14, one of the few minority centers around, still is. It's one of the few that, what's the best way to back up on it, man? When I first got into this, as a young business owner and looking at the world of substance abuse, even though I never was personally affected by it, but I knew I was talking to a demographic of young adults that tend to not understand how older folks may have looked at it, and they looked at it as more recreational, but got caught into some stuff, and now they're trapped. And we got to look at ways. At that point, I had to look at how would my message reach that demographic, because when I started this, I had a lot of people giving me this 1960s approach on how treatment needs to look with kids. Well, I won't say kids, but young adults from 18 to 26. The ways of 1950 and 80 and 90 doesn't work for this generation. So I had to go against the grain a lot and make sure that my center would stand the test of time by making sure I can talk to that community. By doing so, some of the things that I implemented was I wanted to really meet
clients where they work. And that may have been taking a couple, a guy and a girl, which is not always favorable in treatment, or giving them opportunities to get a job or do different things that I knew I was speaking to that group in that section and making their life a little bit easier by just not being so tight. True having that true compassion and empathy, which I think has made us a somewhat a pillar of our community. So I think that empathy and sympathy are part of never forgetting that this person I could be talking to could be my child, your child, or anyone else's child. And I think that has honestly caring is really been my secret sauce.
You know, it's interesting you use this word passion. When we received your bio, that word kind of permeated through the text, literally and figuratively. You in 2016 received your real estate license, and you talked about, you know, using it as a means to invest, but then also helping others achieve, you know, what we consider the American dream. Why was it so important as a CEO, because you're a business owner, you're a business leader, to be multifaceted in your approach? You know, because the old days and that mentality that you talked about in the 80s and 90s, said, look, go be a teacher, stay down that lane and rock that lane forever. Or go be a lawyer, do that, you know. In the moment we played the multifaceted approach, you know, in many cases, for those who are in the older generation or have some years on them, they looked at it and said, well, you're unstable, you're not focused, you're not where you need to be. But we're finding out more and more that you have to have multiple hands in multiple pots,
different pots,
in order to make an impact. You use real estate for that reason. Talk about that journey and what your mindset was around it.
Well, what I wanted to do, man, honestly, like, I wanted to be kind of like a urban Robin Hood. Most people talked about it, but I actually put it into place. So some of the things I used to do, I used to oftentimes will buy and flip properties and those type of things. But what I really found my success in is purchasing distressed properties and then allowing the person to stay in their property. By giving them a new affordable mortgage, I became the bank, so my interest rates were a lot more lucrative for myself. So I got great interest rates, but I also was able to create an environment for those folks that may have lost their house to stay in their house. So by giving them that opportunity to stay there, it worked out for me great as an investor, and it worked great out for me helping the community. Because a lot of times they would say, well, Jonathan, if somebody else bought my house, you would have wanted me to vacate my property or do whatever it is. And I literally let them stay. We worked out new affordable payments, and it created a residual income for me where I was making 30 to 40% off of the deal, which was still great as an investor, but I still let them be able to do different things and maintain a better lifestyle, because I've invested in flips and where I may have walked away with $1,000 and tied up hundreds of thousands of dollars, because, you know, we never know what's going to happen in a flip. You buy it and then you go down and look in the toilet and my God, somebody pulled cement all the way through the.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So I said I have to do a little bit better in finding out ways to be that investor in the real estate space. So buying distressed properties, letting the tenant stay in the properties have always worked for me. And it took my risk tremendously low and almost down to probably 3 to 4%, because I just felt like that tenant, because they became a tenant it was their house. They lost their house, but now they became a tenant, but they still feel empowered that they still own their own property. And I give them a contracted deed and let them work on getting their house back. It seems to just work great for me.
You know, and it's a beautiful thing when you find yourself in a distressed situation, such as losing your home, because no matter what anyone says, that is one of the most traumatic events.
Very traumatic.
That you can have. And watching all of the equity and time and work placed into this home, an asset, now slipping through your fingers, and there's literally nothing you can do about it. That housing crisis shook up families around the country. But it's a beautiful thing.
And not only that, it's still here, even though most people don't
It's still
realize
here.
it's still
Agreed.
it's
It is.
2008 and 6 and all that stuff of our housing. I believe we're in a mini housing bubble now. I mean, the prices of homes are really higher than the average American can afford. I think we're definitely going to see a correction at some point, because houses now definitely in South Florida are 450,000 starting out. When your average ways of income, is you're struggling to see a two working couples make $100,000 a year. So they really believe living above their means, because that means there's no furniture. There's just a blow up bed,
Yeah. And it's not sexy just to have a mattress and an Xbox. That's not how it works.
No more, right? No more. So we're definitely we're in some unique times.
We are. You made mention of the housing bubble still being here, and you're so right. There's even programs like NACA. We had Bruce Marks, the CEO of NACA, on, and we talked about trying to get folk into homes, but more importantly, homes that they can afford, which I think is very crucial in this point. But it's also good to have individuals who have a heart and passion for people when you're in that point where you have to transition out of the ownership space of the home. And you represent some calm in the midst of a storm that's shaking, people's lives up. Now, you could have been predatory in nature.
Correct.
Some have, because the capitalistic mindset says, go get it. There's an opportunity to grab it.
Necessary, right?
Yes, sir. But it takes a certain kind of heart, a certain kind of individual to look at a situation that you could take advantage of and say, nah, I'm going to make some money on this, but I want to ensure that these individuals still are able to maintain their quality of life and have something for time to come. What is that heart principle that drives and fuels you?
Ooh, you asking me for my business secret 101.
Oh man, I asked for the Chick-fil-A sauce on that.
and I'm gonna go, and I don't mind going there, but it all go back to God give it, God take it.
Wow.
And that's how I run every aspect of everything I do, because I remember when I was that person. I remember when I had to run Peter to pay Paul, and he's given me an abundance of things that I'm very thankful for, but I never forgot where I came from. So I live every day as, guess what? I could if I don't do the right thing, he could snatch that carpet right from under me.
Brother, it's real.
I pray so much to be where I am today. So while I'm here today, and I have the many blessings today, I better do what's right. And no matter what, we all heard that famous saying, we can't take it with us, right? But I can make sure I can set up something for my kids and my family to where that they have some things to where they won't have to go back through those burdens I went through growing up as a young man and figuring out my path. So that sauce is, man, that spirituality component of getting up, being thankful, and treat everybody as though I want to be treated.
Those are common principles that are inside of that little book, Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth. Folk will get that on the ride home. But, those principles and pillars you're able to build skyscrapers of success on if used correctly. For those who are watching this broadcast going, you know what? I love what this brother is doing. How do I support? How do I engage? How do I work with him and connect with, whether it be the treatment center or whether it's the real estate side? How does one connect with you and begin to build the empire?
Jonathan Gary Incorporated. That's JONATHAN GARYSRINC. One of the things that I feel like we didn't touch on, and I don't know if you know that I do, but I think right now this is where I really am looking for support. I created an organization called Manhood Mentorship. Manhood Mentorship is a group where men mentor other men. I found growing up in life, it was tons of opportunities for ladies to get their network together and support system. And there's tons of kid mentoring. But what happened after you turn 18 and a guy needs some peer support from another guy? We created a men's only mentor center and network where men can be a resource for other men. The only requirement is you have to be over 18. We don't care about your color. We don't care about your religion. We don't care about your political status. We're just here in supporting other men because, as you know, with mental health and conversations that typically are never had, because going to see a therapist for us is, it's not like most men, I feel like we're not wanting to go or feel like we can go, but the relatability is often missed in a therapist and those type of things because you never know where I came from. You didn't know, because I have tons of therapists and I always make sure that they're connecting to the relatability side of anything that I do, especially in my treatment center. So I tend to have found out as guys going to therapists, it's always not as easy to find that great therapist that can relate to you and give you that guidance. And most of them, what I've sometimes learned, not often, but I've seen where therapists also keep some folks in negative deficits, which means that that's a business that we didn't realize, right?
Yeah.
So if I keep you in that trauma and I keep you in that space, you're going to continue coming back to me, right? Yeah. Which is most people don't talk about. So I felt like creating an organization where we can have barbershop conversations, but also give some opportunities where we can help each other with business accolades or investing or support. We did things with, we got a group of guys, kids together, and we did a whole bunch of kid activities. So that organization right now is my calling, and it's called Manhood Mentorship. And the goal is to have this in every major city in the next 2 to 3 years, and God willing, I can hopefully get that done.
So it's providential that you even made this comment right now. So many know that I host an event called the Made Man Organization. It's a foundational gala that goes around the country, highlighting men of color and the great work that they're doing. More importantly, creating exactly what you just said, that network of men to be able to support men. They do a day of service in the schools, at the colleges, in the community, and then celebrate the men at night inside of their networks. You need to get connected with them, and I'm going to make sure that they connect with you because they're also doing some work internationally as well, having leaders from Africa and not just the continent, but all around the world coming together as men of color to really address the issues of the day, but really to build the Rolodex, to make sure brothers know the first fraternity is the manhood.
Yes, sir.
Long before you pledge on campus, it should be the fact that as Black men, we are part of one of the greatest fraternities ever, and that's being a Black man. And so you're doing amazing work on that. However, we can support you. We're going to do it. Whether it's Zooms that you have, and obviously as COVID transitions and we're able to come out and put some mileage and get some wheels up, we'll do that and hang out with you because our communities need support. We need that brotherhood to extend not just from the community, but into various cities and around the country as well. So we love you, brother. We honor you for that.
Appreciate it. And anything I can do, I'm always here, man. Definitely, for sure.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So give the broadcast audience just one more time how to get in touch with you and how to connect with you regarding manhood.
Manhood is manhoodmentorship.com. And for me, the biggest thing is Jonathan Gary Incorporated. It's just my name, Jonathan Gary Sr. Forgot the senior. And INC. If you Google Jonathan Gary INC, Jonathan Gary SR, you'll find tons of ways of connecting. And I'm here. I want to be able to be a resource to the community for as in investing. If you got a small business idea and you need some funding or you need some guidance or whatever that is, let's see what synergies we can have to make that goal, a reality for you. Because one of the second things, Malik, is I love to see that independence and entrepreneurship because that's what I think I get up every day is that independence of I don't feel like working today. I got an opportunity to go back home. I don't have to call anybody. I don't have to check in with my mom. My kids get sick. I don't have to call anybody to go through all of that stuff. And if you can create that independence and continue to work at whatever hustle you have, it can make it happen. You can definitely make it happen. And hopefully I can help anybody that may need some support on getting that done.
Listen, brother, you're doing a tremendous work. Know that you are not alone. There are brothers who are doing work just like you around the country and would love to connect with you and get behind your leadership to make an impact where you are, man. So we honor you and thank you for joining us today on Heart City, brother.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity. I hope to see you again soon.
Hey, we're going to stay in touch and we're going to make some things happen.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So see you later.
Brother. So you've heard from Jonathan Gary doing tremendous work around the country. His vision and goal is to make sure that nationally, the Manhood Mentorship Program is able to do its mission inside of the homes that need it most, where, you know, that relationship from older man to younger man is not there, where there's a need for building the network of resources so that we can make a significant impact. And this is not to isolate men from our beautiful sisters, because I think a lot of times whenever we start to have conversation around mentorship and manhood, sometimes that conversation gets very co-opted into a gender war. And I want you to know here at Heart City, even our leadership team is from our women. It's from our sisters. And we stand behind that leadership team. And we're working together to make not only just this broadcast happen, but impact in the community as well. And I think that there are thousands other men who feel the same way. It's not about which gender is in position. And we want to make sure that our women get everything that they deserve plus some for all that they do for us. But more importantly, making sure that as a team, no matter who's in position, that we have each other's back and that we care about each other and we're doing the work to make sure that we all are successful, not just one. Jonathan Gary's doing just that. And so we'll make sure we post all of his information. Now, we talked about health. We talked about education funding. We talked about entrepreneurship. We talked about treatment and substance abuse. Now we're going to talk about mental health. This brother is doing tremendous work in the space around mental health. Kevin Patterson. He's a mental health professional with 20 plus years working with families and communities. He's beyond qualified, a bachelor's of science in business administration, a master's degree in organizational leadership and criminal justice behavior analyst. And in the field, he's held tons of positions: supervisor for residential facilities and behavioral specialist, a corporate trainer, a compliance analyst for behavioral health agencies. This brother helps us get right and act right and do right. So without further ado, brother Kevin, welcome home to Heart City, man. It's great having you with us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you offering me this platform and the great work that you do. Like, wow, it's my first time seeing it, and I've been impressed the whole time. I wish more people knew about this because this is awesome.
We appreciate it, man. And we get a chance to highlight brothers and our sisters who are just doing tremendous work in the space. You are one of them. The biggest thing that we're dealing with right now with COVID, yes, there's a stimulus bill that's getting ready to be placed in position. 9 times out of 10, it's going to get chewed up again. So I want you guys to understand that $908 billion. There's some folk that want multiple trillions of dollars added. Nancy Pelosi wants to see that as speaker. Then you have the conservative side saying, hey, we don't need as much. Drop it down to $500 billion. In the midst of $500 billion and about $3.2 trillion is a whole bunch of stress, Kev, for families all around the country trying to deal with the realities that we face, not just with COVID, but the stuff that we already had that we brought into COVID. How do we begin to deal? And it's great because we have a lot of agencies and therapists that come on and talk about, mental health. But how do we begin to deal with this new reality in 2021? We're going into a holiday season with no stimulus bill.
Right.
For some, no employment.
Yes.
For I mean, the list goes on. How do we stay sane in all of this, brother?
I think one of the biggest things you want to realize is to realize that it's a new thing. And once you become aware of your strengths and weaknesses, that will help you to move to the next level or to stay sane or competent within your level. Because you think about everything that's going on, you already have what you need. You're built for it. You just have to be aware of that you are built for it. So that those things that come to you, we can struggle through this. This is not a new struggle. It's just a different struggle.
Okay.
You know, when you think about the whole COVID thing and shutting in the homes and everyone has to come together and then connect differently, and that's a strength. That's also going to bring strength to the family and to your community that you're connecting to in a different way. You have to be able to lean on them and make sure they can lean on you. Because this is a sense that we have to be aware to listen, aware to see. And doing those things, we're able to not only prosper ourselves, but those who are around us. This is definitely a time for community.
Indeed. And you talk about community and family. I think those things are very crucial. Many of us, for some who have a nuclear family in the house or family members who are living together in whatever format, many days prior to COVID, we spent time flying past each other. Everybody, I got to go to work. I'm out. I'm coming home from work. I'm in, and the kid is dealing with school and bouncing back and forth, and everybody's zigzagging throughout the house, but not necessarily spending meaningful time in the house. And COVID has kind of brought everybody back home and put everybody in a true centralized location. But do we actually have the centralized mindset yet of being able to do exactly what you said, connect with family and kind of go back to basics?
I think that's individualized because you have a home with children in it, you have no choice but to connect. Because they're going to make that connection happen. That when they leave the home, you're like, whew. But while they're there, you have to connect them in reference to understanding where they're coming from and their needs. And in doing so, your needs will be met. And every home is different. Remember, all of a sudden, we was outside in the doorstep, and we had to come inside. So now I have to talk to my wife. You have to talk to your kids. You have to talk, but not only talk, you have to be willing to listen to what they say. Before, like you mentioned earlier, in reference to we ran back and forth. It used to amaze me when you would walk by somebody, say, "Hi, how you doing?" and they keep on going. But it's that one person, that, "Hey, how you doing? How's your day?" You're like, this is rhetorical. I really didn't mean for to have a conversation.
Right.
People are looking for that conversation. They are looking for you to listen. And when you're in the home right now, this is another form of trauma that's happening. And trauma's not a bad thing. Trauma is just an event that's happening within that space. And how do we deal with it to make it normal, but also to realize it's still there so we can grow?
You just touched on something that kind of just blew my mind. I'm trying to keep a straight face on this. You mentioned trauma as not being necessarily a bad thing. For many of us who are not in the professional space around mental health and therapy, we hear the word trauma, we hear PTSD. Normally we apply it to some of the worst situations, a shooting, one who's coming back home from war, some of the worst things that could possibly happen within the human experience. But you said, look, it's something that's happening. And it's a trigger really for action or a call for treatment and resource. And so you just helped me out because trauma, to your point, is not the end result. It's not a condition by which to sit and stew in, but more so a call to action to actually get out of and change the landscape. Is that the translation?
That's pretty much correct. Like I said, so you look at the trauma that way, someone else may look at it a different way. When you think about trauma, again, it's about the lens. So the lens that we go through is interpreted differently for each one of us, not as reference to the impact of the trauma is different. But you say right now, we both have to look out a window and look across the street or look through that same window at the same time. We're going to focus on something different that's important to us. It could be the fire hydrant, the car, the tree, or someone that sees an opening. But that's important to you. It doesn't mean it's wrong or right, but it's something that you work on to your focus. And then in trauma, you bring into focus what you need to work on or you need to let go.
You sound like you need to help Congress figure out how to pass this stimulus bill, because I think they're looking at the same bill, but somebody's paying attention to one thing, the other one's paying attention to the other, and they're fighting in the midst of that. But you bring up some really key points. It doesn't mean that one is right or wrong. It just means that that's the perspective
yes,
that the individual has. That's not just a lesson for dealing with young folk who are dealing with the challenges of life, or, you know, some of the things that we deal with as a family in the home. That's something that could be applied to business, you know, a myriad of issues in life. And so talk about your journey as a corporate trainer and being able to take some of these principles and apply it to the corporate space.
One of the things I always remembering, I always have to think about, how do you see me? Recognize I am an African-American man. I'm kind of built in stature. So depending on who I'm training and their various experiences, it's still that cultural differences. So, and even in language and articulation. So how do you see me is my first icebreaker in reference to, what do you see right now? And once we get past this, we can now learn the fine tunes of the regs, the policies and procedure, understanding the boundaries and safety, as well as perspectives. But I always tell people, who do you see right now? I'm not here as the bad guy. I'm here the guy to give information. And don't mean my information is perfect, but how you interpret. So a lot of times when I do training, it's like, I give you these points, we go through the whole slide, but I always tell people, what did you learn? Give me 3 points. Give it back to me, because I love to speak, but I need to know that you heard something within that 20 minutes, because we only retain, 10 minutes of information? So I love the spots, so you get little spots of information, and they pull back, and they regurgitate it back to you. But how much have you invested into yourself? So when you leave this platform or this room, you can go into the next arena. It's like, okay, I do remember this. I remember that. Boom. I ain't gonna remember the whole 30 minutes. Or I remember the joke, the icebreakers, but they all connect. So in the corporate world, everything is changing constantly with COVID. Telehealth, you know, before you're in the classroom, now you have to use the media as a way to articulate in reference to communicate. Like I just recently did a training, and one of the things I've always expressed with HR, tell your people when they're coming onto the training, they must have their cameras on.
Okay.
They said, well, everyone doesn't have a camera, but if you were coming to work, you are to be seen. And that's part of that give and take. That's part of that conversation, to see the facial expressions, to see the dialogue, not to see someone laid on the couch as they listen to the training and still getting paid.
Right. No, you're right.
So that means you're in a new mindset.
I never thought about it as you just presented it. I mean, it is part of the give and take. Many of us will throw the icon up or some photo of us up looking studious. You know, meanwhile, you know, we're flipping bacon and you know, doing everything but paying attention to the Zoom or the Skype. For those who are listening to you, especially those who have transitioned from being in a corporate space every day and now they're at home, what are some of the things that they can do to find balance and not lose their sanity in dealing with the trauma of being home every day, whereas work was a destination, you know, for them? Now everything's centered in their home. They're navigating this.
I always tell people, you want to make sure you lose that pride. Understand that you're a new environment, new experience. So you do have a weight on you. It may not feel heavy. You may think it's a feather, but it's a weight on you. So you need to get up. You need to step away from that computer every once in a while. You need to speak to someone in person. You need to have a joke. You need to find someone else to speak to. But you also have to realize when you're burning out, because right now with telehealth, you're doing more now than you did at the average workplace. If you think about that workplace, I always tell people, 8-hour day, you really only work 5 hours. The rest is lunch, the 15-minute break, the walk around the places, and avoiding people, and then you communicate the rest of the job.
Right.
Everybody's on the camera with you. Everyone knows your schedule. Everyone wants an instant connect. Instant gratification could be a burnout because you're gratifying everyone else, but you're not gratifying yourself. So you really need to shut it down and come back to it. Literally take your hour break for lunch and literally come back, because we're trying to satisfy, because we're trying to have more equity in our ability to do our job so that we can do this. But at the end of the day, Friday, you sleep all day long because you're waiting for Monday. Because you really turn it on. Because most people who have telehealth has the phones now.
Right.
I always tell people at one point when we was just going with cell phones that you were not as connected to the world as you thought you were. But in the same respect, since you have that phone, you carry your trauma all the time. Some people, how many of your cell phones have voicemail? Or is it instant gratification and I want to pick it up to hear what's going on? Before we had cell phones, before we had the whole IP set up, we had a regular phone that we went about our day and enjoyed it and let it go to voicemail, or we got a message when we got home. Now we're racing and racing. That's burning you out internally and psychologically.
Yeah.
So you got to find your peace. I always tell people, pick up an art project, read a good book, take a moment, listen to that music, find your balance, and understanding that that balance is not going to work continuously all the time. You may have to reinvent yourself with the balance.
Indeed. So you just give us a whole bunch of gems to take with us. You know, that desire to check voicemail. Now, many who know me will agree. I don't check the voicemail as much as I should, but you know, the text messages, the messengers, all that kind of stuff you're paying attention to, especially when the notifications pop up, you know, and they're drawing you back in. For those seniors who are home, because I think when we talk about dealing with COVID or balancing mental health, we talk about the working part of our community. We talk about our young folk who are aspiring and going through their development journey. Very rarely do we have big conversation around our seniors who are at home, whether with their life partner or not. They're still dealing with, I can't see my grandchildren because of COVID. You know, I'm at risk, or I have some level of comorbidity. And so they're dealing with mental health as well, trying to navigate a world without their family being close by. And so for those who are listening, who are what we call here at Heart City, our seasoned saints, what are some words of wisdom that you would share with them as they're navigating this time?
I would say you want to be creative in how you connect. You know, take the phone call, call them, because, you know, our elderlies are like, you should call me first. But in the same way, when you call, you have to use active listening and really be present on that phone call. Go by but not going in. Beat the horn. We just wanted to say hi. And I'm sure that's going to warm somebody's heart for the fact that you took the extra effort just to ride by the wave, mask and everything on, to say hi. That visual presence of seeing my family from a distance is better than not seeing them at all. That issue of just standing on the phone and they're hearing me when I was saying, yeah, grandma, yeah, I got you, and listening, and then reiterate something back that they say, oh, they were present with me even though they wasn't connected to me.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why activity is important. Go back to the old-fashioned mellow letter.
Wow.
That good old card. Remember you love open up that little, oh my God, I got it.
Yes.
The mail still works. That texture, that paper. Wow. You know, I know it's in the air, but you're reading something that you decided to pick up and you put in the mailbox.
Yeah.
There's nothing like getting a card from somebody. It's like, wow. Then that starts another conversation.
Right. So, you know, it's interesting. Not that I forgot how to write a letter. I mean, obviously you type and you dictate into Word and I can type relatively well. But the thought of literally picking up the pen rather than to sign something, to actually write a letter, to express my thoughts on paper and actually mail it out, that itself is a whole project indeed. One that you can put some love into, pack some creative things into the envelope and share an experience. You just, brother, you just put us on to something, man. It's a great idea.
How you just say it changes you, the thought process of doing it. Now think about the mechanics of now doing it. How those small movements will also exercise your inner workings. And in doing so now, I'm getting out. I'm doing the envelope. I'm doing the stamp. I'm walking out. That's not being because everybody's going to be couch potatoes in a minute. So we're looking for that.
That's true. That is true, brother. And the way my gym membership is set up, I need not to be sitting on the couch with an extra plate of anything at this moment. You see, I got black on, trying to hide. You know what I mean? As we kind of close this out, Kev, from your heart to the heart of the city, what's on your mind to share with us whether it be a word, a thought, something you may have read or seen that you want to share with us that's going to keep us and center us through this week?
I guess the biggest thing I think about right now that comes to mind is this too shall pass. We are built for more than this, and recognizing that you will come through, because he only gives you what you need, but he got more for you on the other side. No matter how you get there, you have to be willing to do the work, and that's being patient with each other. Patience, 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 because the stress level of, for some reason, being locked in a home is so stressful for so many people that they're seeing things the wrong way. Take a minute, look at your environment and pause. Take a breath. Feel who you are and feel who you can be. Like the people you said prior, there's so many avenues to reinvent yourself right now. Take advantage of that.
Dude, you dropped so many gems just in that last 30 seconds. That's a clip that we're going to make sure we play back for our broadcast audience. Kev, how does one get in touch with you to connect with you and the great work that you're doing? Obviously, the consultancy and the training is very crucial, especially even for businesses that are trying to revamp themselves and reposition themselves in the marketplace. So how does one connect with you?
Basically, it's just Kevin, KEVIN, inspire @gmail.com. Currently, that's the easiest way to send me an email. They'll reach out.
And we'll make sure that we post it on our social media pages. I think your hashtag or your handle is spot on. You do indeed inspire, brother. You inspired me just even in this conversation. We love you, we honor you, and appreciate you for the great work you're doing for us and for the community. And I appreciate that. But how are you taking care of yourself? Dude, that's a whole, like, now you want to do a whole another hour story. I gotta call Kendall up. Like, Kev tried to interview me on the show at the end of the show. so I'm gonna tell you what. It's funny that you said that, because there's about 6 texts that I'm probably going to leave this broadcast and leave the studio and go to that are going to say, "See, Kev was right. You don't take care of yourself. You're looking all emaciated on TV." Wow. You're a very giving person. I can tell that you give a lot. But again, guys, when had the last time you took a moment to say, "Whew," to shut it down? And I know what you grinded and you grinded, but you don't want to burn out. It's hard. Every now and then I get a little chance to play, PS4. I have my version of myself in the career, so I'm like leading the league right now in my own mind around NBA 2K. But a lot of that time I try to spend on the golf course when when the season was there. Okay. And now trying to do different things. Like, so now I'm learning French. And that's, that was my thing. I played through Spanish class and never decided to speak another language. And so French became this love language that I fell head over heels for. And so learning is a way for me to actually detox, believe it or not. And so I sit and read and try stuff. So I hear your passion in it. Your whole body gave a lot, like, yes. Oh yeah, I started pop locking and everything. Yeah, bro. So, but I'm gonna tell you what. Here's one thing, because you just sparked an idea. I think even just dealing with therapy and dealing with some issues, you and I should do a show where we reverse the roles. You be the host, I'll be the guest, and let's just go through a session. You do exactly what you just started to do, and interview me, and and let's have that conversation. If you're down, let's do it. Definitely sounds like a great opportunity. I look forward, but I won't interview you. I'll develop a relationship with you. See, that's what I'm talking about. All right, Kendall, book Kev now. All right, book. Yeah, and that's what it's about. It is about relationship. And I honor you even for the beginnings of this great relationship and how you've warmed up the space and really have taken care of our community by giving us all of these gems today, brother. And so thank you for all that you do. Thank you for the opportunity. And I look forward to it. We look forward to it as well. So you have heard from my brother, Kevin, and I can now say, you know, brother, he made it very clear. It's about relationship, not just a transaction. Kevin Patterson broke it down. Look, you know, take time out to go stop and hang with your loved ones who are locked in the homes, especially those that are up in age. Even with the mask on, just stopping by, saying hi, doing it with your neighbors down the street. How important that may become to them who may not have family to do exactly that. And also, as he checked me and reminded me of the importance of just taking the time to detox, to unplug. It's great to be responsive. It's great to be the one that people know that you're going to, you know, respond in some way, shape, or form that's going to be favorable to them or the situation. But it's even more important that you take time out to deal with your stuff. I need to do that same thing as well. And so I honor Kevin and the great work that he's doing. We're going to make sure that we post his contact information for all of you to check it out, support him and the great work that he and our second hour guest, Jonathan Gary, are doing in the space. This has been an amazing show. As always, we do, you know, these shows and we plan one way and it goes another way, and that way God takes it is a blessing. Hopefully not just to you, but I can tell you it's definitely to me as well. And so I need you to do something for us. It's really simple. Just go to the YouTube page today and subscribe. Become a part of the Heart City family. There you can get some updates. You'll get notifications, bonus content. We have some behind the scenes footage, all kinds of stuff is waiting for you there. You can also find us on all of our social media outlets, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And as we always say, feel beautiful, look beautiful, and act beautiful. Why? Because you truly are beautiful. I'll see you next week.